Hello, good afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome in. If you were here in April, then you kind of know the flow of this. If not, we'll try to help you catch up. And I'm going to go over the objectives. All right. So today our objectives are, we're first going to review our connections cluster, which is the last cluster of the three elements in the connections cluster on the ECM. We're going to reflect on experiences about observations and ratings like we've done in the past. And we're going to determine that priority element from that connections cluster that you want to focus on for your
I
site.
think so.
And if you could just mute for now, thank you. And then if you'd like to speak, we can come on mute, unmuted. Continue developing goals and action steps for your site level joint action plan. And then we're going to reflect on the ECM itself and the joint action process, because this is our final year-long journey for the ecosystem cohort for this year. And then we're going to talk about creating an infrastructure. All right, we'll go to the next slide and we'll talk about the norms. So the norms are the same every month. We are committed to be open-minded and flexible to change, step up when needed, and also step back so others have a chance to discuss and talk, and be present as much as you can. Respect the opinions and communication styles of everyone involved. We're going to commit to listen to understand and commit to pause and reflect throughout. So we'll have some space for that, and make sure you give yourself space where needed with that. All right, we'll go to the next slide. So today is all about the connections cluster. These are our next cluster elements. These are the 7, 8, and 9 elements, essential elements 7, 8, and 9. These focus on connections with individual children, with the children in the classroom, between adults and children. We want to assess their progress, look at dual language learners. Element 7 is focused on practices that allow us to know how children are progressing and benefiting from their learning and experiences, and how we must adjust or refine teaching for future instructional needs. So addressing their needs based on the data. Number 8 is focused on practices that allow all elements to come to life for children who are developing in more than one language, and or for learning experiences to be equitable for those children. And then element 9 are practices that ensure that learning continues beyond the immediate classroom, that little bubble of life, and that families also are active co-constructors of this ecosystem or part of the bubble. So in that sense, we're thinking about the whole site as well as the classroom, and how the classroom connects with children, but also how your school connects with children. All right, we'll go on to the next slide and talk about this whole process. All right, so the process, as we've mentioned before, is to observe, reflect, and take action. So everyone should have observed at least one or more classrooms within your school or your site or your organization. Today, we can reflect and have an opportunity to connect with our peers, and we will take action. So after we reflect, we'll look on building an action plan with action steps. All right. Next slide. All right, so I mentioned pausing and reflecting. This is your time. We're going to take 2 minutes here and think about these questions. How was your experiencing using the ECM 2.0? And where is your biggest need based on your rating? So think about those 3 essential elements that we just discussed, and think about what you saw at your site or in a classroom that you observed. And just reflect on these questions. So we'll take 2 minutes right now. All right. All right, we'll go on to the next slide. And on this slide, I just want to discuss with you all to think about these things. So when prioritizing, decide where the biggest need is. So as you look at those three essential elements, you decide where that biggest need is. Obviously, the ones who are at emerging at a 1, they're gonna be the biggest need. If they're all at a 1 or they're all at a 3, you have to decide what you want to focus on. And then you choose that element with the lowest rating and just focus in on that one. All right, we'll go to the next slide. All right, so the joint action plan is what we're looking at now. So now that you know what you want to focus on, we're going to set a goal. And this is just an example. So this is the example that we show every month. It's the example that's on Cox campus, and it talks about children as conversational partners. So just take a moment to look at this so you kind of familiarize yourself. As you can see, the goal is at the top. All staff will engage children in meaningful conversations throughout the day. That's the goal that we're looking for. And then there is an objective set in here. All staff will learn and implement practices to engage children in conversation throughout the day. And then the action steps: meet with staff to outline expectations, plan training sessions, so taking courses, posting things in the classroom. And then, of course, you're going to need to put your resources, who's responsible, by when, the review date. And then there's a place to keep up with the status as you go along, so you can check on it on a monthly basis, or however you decide with your site, how often you want to check in on the progress of this. Any questions about this example? And it is in the chat here. All right, so we'll go on to the next slide. And in this one, we're going to collaborate here. I'm going to actually give you an example from the 3 elements. And so I'm going to share my screen here. Just give me 1 second to set that up. And I'm going to fill out a joint action plan. Okay. So here is a blank joint action plan. You would put in your site, you would put in the element, and then the related courses. And I'm going to type in the goal here. So my goal for this hypothetical center is teachers will partner with all families to better understand the cultures represented in their classrooms by using results gathered from the Family Language Culture Survey in conjunction with developing a classroom language plan suitable for all children to learn and thrive. And from that, you can develop your own objective to go with it, but I really want to focus in on action steps. So actually, I have Jennifer joining now, so let me see if we can communicate with her. Jennifer, are you there? She was having some technical difficulties, and I'm going to take a moment to see if we got her through. I saw her coming through.
Okay, I'm here. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Jennifer. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Nathan, for being patient. Hi, everybody. I apologize. The internet was not my friend today, but I think we're good. Hello.
All right.
Hello. Hi, Mary Elizabeth. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we're at the joint action plan, Nathan.
Yes, so this is actually perfect timing, because what I'm going to do here is ask you some questions and see what action steps you would use. So I just went over what the goal is, and which is teachers to partner with families to better understand cultures represented in their classroom by using those results gathered from the Family Language and Culture Survey in conjunction with developing classroom language plans suitable for all children to learn and thrive. So this is all about getting the data from the parents through the culture survey, the Family Language and Culture Survey, so that the children who are dual language learners are included in the plans, and having a plan that's suitable for the children to thrive along. So it's an equitable approach here for those children. So what would you say would be a good action step to fit here for like your first action step? If you were a director or a coach at a site?
First, Nathan, I would probably find out if staff or anyone who's included in this plan has the knowledge. So I would probably start things off with the Cox Campus courses that support this particular goal. So I'm thinking about the DLL1 course, which is connecting the dots, and the DLL2 course, which is supporting DLL learners. So great. I think that's a great start to at least make sure that people are knowledgeable and they have the content behind the work.
I love it. So now that's a simple first approach is, all right, we got these courses, have all the teachers take the courses. Maybe we do a review, maybe we, talk about it, but taking the course is the first step. I love it.
Yep.
All right. So once they've all taken the courses or along the way there, what would your next step be for an action step here? What do you think would be helpful to reach this goal?
I would have them reference those resources that are shared in the course, which is the Family Language Survey. So I would have them download and print a copy for their families so that they could share that with the families and try to get some information from your families. Yep.
Great. So the resources are on Cox campus. We just print them out, make sure the families are turning them in, get that data.
Yep.
Love it. So then we know the children in the classroom. We know a lot from the families and the parents. And I know when I was working in the classroom on a daily basis, I would learn about my parents, but gosh, it would be great to have like a database where I know the languages that are spoken and the cultures so that I can refer to that, especially from a whole school perspective.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's great. All right, so let's do one more step here. What would you say would be your third step?
Well, the next thing is to review that information. So once all your families have submitted their surveys back to you, it's now time for you as the teachers to take a look at those results. And from those results, start determining how you would incorporate that information into your weekly plans. And we have something on Cox that you can also reference, which is the classroom language plan. There's a template there that can kind of guide you on how to use that information.
Excellent. So I see, take the course, get the knowledge,
Mhm.
and give out the surveys and get all that data, and then take that data and do something with it. So we're going to create
Yes.
plans, we're going to create an environment, we're going to, really incorporate. And what I love about the classroom language plan is that it has a space for all that. It has a
Mhm.
space to put the data about the children in your classroom, where they're from, what their languages are, and then it has a space for you to plan what
Yes.
resources do you already have available? Is it parents, grandparents, family members?
Mhm.
Maybe you have a teacher who's bilingual and speaks the same language as a child in your
Yeah.
classroom, but she works in another classroom, and you want to borrow, and meet with that teacher to get some knowledge around it. So, and then gathering resources. So it's an inventory, essentially.
Yes, basically.
That's
So those are
excellent.
some good steps to get started with, and you can always add steps along the way, or go back and continue working on some steps that you already have planned out.
I want to pause here and see if anybody has any questions. And you can ask questions about what we just went over, or specific questions about some things that you're seeing, or as you're planning your action steps on your joint action plan, or you can just share out. So I just want to pause, and you can put it in the chat or you can unmute. Any aha moments, any ideas coming up for you for next steps for your teachers?
Please take a look at the chat because we did drop some resources in there so that you can reference those and maybe download those and use those and share them with your staff. Good afternoon, everybody.
All right, we can go on to the next slide. Feel free to add any questions or comments in the chat.
Okay, so where are we now? So we're at the place where you should have your plans in front of you, or at least close to you somewhere where you can look at those plans, take a moment, see what goals you already have in mind for your staff, and ask yourself these two questions here. Have you been able to start implementing any of your action steps? And what needs to be in place at your site or program to meet those realistic goals? So take a brief moment to just kind of think about where you are now. And like Nathan offered earlier, we do want to still have a little space in here where you can ask questions, because after this session, this is where we really want you guys to take it off the ground and really, do some work in your plans. Any questions? Are there any people that still need some support because you're not quite finished developing your plan? Please use this opportunity now.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions about, even if it's if you don't know what to ask, like what
Mhm.
I would like to see, these improvements, and really, since this is our last one, it could be any of the 9 elements if you have questions about, because we can offer some suggestions for next steps or action steps. Obviously, taking the course is a good first step. But you might say, well, what now after they've taken the course? So anything that comes up, we can talk about it, or anybody can share out. Your peers are here for support.
Hi everybody, can I ask a question?
Yes, hi.
Good afternoon. My name is Ife Anako, and I am not an early childhood educator. I'm actually a secondary mathematics content coach, but I have been working with my son's preschool and helping them develop their academic program, and I signed up for this. So in terms of the joint action plan, would you say is there a step before you have a group of preschool educators work on this together? So is there like a training that they should work on before they start working on an action plan for their school? Sorry, I randomly got this email and just signed up for this. So I don't know if I
It's
feel
okay.
like
It's okay. Thank
okay.
you for asking. So there is a prerequisite to doing this work, and it's we ask that you take the ecosystem approach course. And so the course is something that really takes this work and breaks it down. It is a thorough course. It's about 4 hours long, but
Okay.
we encourage you to take your time with it and really, take notes, pay attention, use the resources. And there's a lot of supports on Cox campus that can really help you, but we do encourage you to get familiar with the ecosystem first before you jump into this work.
Thank you. And I can find it on the site. It's on the site, of
On
course.
coxcampus.org. Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Nathan, did you want to add anything to that maybe? Or is it?
The only thing I can think of is the course itself. If there's a way for you to, if we could send you recordings of these meetings and some of the discussions we've had, but there's also a document we call a closer look document, ecosystem construction measure itself, but those things are actually mentioned in the course. So I agree, Jennifer, taking the course itself will lead you in that right direction.
Thank you. I'm happy to stay on the call after. And if there's anybody on the call in New York City that works at a preschool, I will happily want to connect so I can come observe your schools. Like I said, I'm a secondary teacher, but I'm trying to learn and take it all in. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. And the link to the course is in the chat. Thank you, Shantae.
Okay,
right.
we're gonna keep it moving, guys. Thanks for your questions. Okay, here we have a short little snippet of a video that we want to share with you. It's a real life story, and you get to see how the ecosystem really transforms this classroom. And so take a look.
I'm excited to invite Kizzy and Tammy to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Take a moment to introduce yourselves. Let's start with Kizzy.
Hi, Hi, my name is Kizzy Williams, and I'm the lead instructional support coach.
Great. And Tammy, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Hello, I'm Tammy Mullins, and I'm an education manager.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. We've been hearing a lot about this ecosystem approach and an ecosystem construction measure, and we'd like to know more about the process and your personal experiences with all this construction. So, at your site, who made up the team who participated in the ECM completion?
So at my site, the team consists of myself, my facilitator, our ed manager, and our center manager. Because with this ecosystem, it takes everybody to ensure that we're moving our kids.
How did using the ECM and planning your goals around it make your work more meaningful and effective?
I will say using the ECM made our work more intentional, and it made it more meaningful because we could actually measure. We actually set goals that we could actually measure with the classroom, with the teachers, by using our progress monitoring tool. And so with this, instead of us trying to work on everything, our focus became intentional. And like I said, with the center manager being involved, it became intentional for everybody at the site, not just teachers, not just ed managers, not just the center managers, but family service workers, cooks. Everybody in the building was intentional on using this language with the kids.
And I must say, the 9 elements of the ecosystem measure were explained to us by the facilitator and the instructional support coach in great detail. It was explained so that we understood exactly what they were observing. We were able to see, like Kizzy said, where our teachers were, where our classrooms were, and we were able to, take that goal that they had clearly defined and actually support them around that goal, knowing, how this goal was determined, not just somebody coming in, giving you a goal and saying, this is what we're going to work on. It was explained to us. We could look at the elements. We could see how they did the observations. So it was just a great process that helped me to be able to see, where we were and where we needed to be.
Wow, very thorough process. So how did children's outcomes improve as a result of this process?
So the children outcomes improve because you think about it. If your leader has the goal that she's working toward as the center as a whole, and then that is trickled down to everybody in the sites, even the teachers, then children move because your goal, your target, your approach to working with them is targeted. So we worked with teachers on that goal, on ensuring that our kids were moving. And like I told you, it's something that we could actually measure. We could see the growth in the children. And then not only could we see it, but parents could see it. And they were a part of it. I think when you are intentional about what you're working on and everybody feels a part of it, that's what works. That's what moves kids. When everybody feel like they had a hand in, okay, it's not just my goal as a coach. It's just not the education manager goal. It's not just the center manager goals. It's everybody's goal because everybody had a hand in creating these. And so since we all had a hand in it, we all got to take pride in seeing the progression of our kids by using this ecosystem measuring tool.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing with us about the ecosystem construction measure today. We can really see how effective it is towards improving children's outcomes and involving everyone in this effort at the site. Thank you again for being on the show. It was really good to see you, Tammy, and good to see you, Kizzy.
Okay, guys. So I hope you enjoyed that video clip of the Kizzy and Tammy explaining how the ecosystem measure has done wonders in their programs. So here we're going to move on to creating your infrastructure.
Progress in ecosystem construction will happen much more rapidly and effectively if the site has several key practices and policies in place to support the construction. Think of these as the infrastructure that is needed for the construction to take off. Let's take a closer look at each of them. The first is to cultivate a data-driven culture. The site works to create a climate where data are used effectively to set goals and guide actions and next steps, and where teachers and others have no fear for what data might show. The second is to afford teachers common planning time. The site encourages teachers of classrooms that serve same-age children the opportunity to work together towards the same goals. There is a shared responsibility for all children beyond those we directly teach. The third is to value professional learning. The site honors teachers' desires and needs to deepen their knowledge and skills and affords them the time to engage in professional learning. COGS campus courses are considered essential preparation in the areas of language and literacy, and opportunities abound for staff to come together and share and celebrate their learning. Finally, the fourth is to support and mentor teachers along their learning journey. Classroom practices are most likely to change when teachers receive personalized support in their work setting from a skilled and caring coach. The site engages instructional coaches to promote reflection on practice and deepen learning. Instructional coaching is one of the most effective professional learning approaches, much more effective than trainings or technical assistance.
Okay, so in your ecosystem construction measure tool, there's some pages 8 through 11 that we want you to reference. And so we took a clip of this and wanted to encourage you guys to pay attention to these items, such as the conditions that may optimize the ecosystem construction at your sites. So there's certain things that you have to really commit to, really prepare for, because this is, it's a lot of work, but if everybody puts hands on deck, this work is obtainable and it's sustainable as well. So we do have some things that we want you to go back and look at on pages 8 through 11 of your tool to get a little bit more information on, so that you're more prepared when it's time to take things off.
Jennifer, I'd like to, in the next slide, go over a couple of those pages. We don't have
Sure.
all the pages on here, but
Yeah.
if we can go to the next slide, let's see. All right, so one of the building blocks that was mentioned in the video is the Cox Campus courses. So having that foundation, and we talked about it, I know we talk about it a lot, but all staff, including these are our suggestions, and this is right out of the ECM. All staff, including leadership, understand the importance of the courses and the content, and build in that role in building capacity, enhanced by coaching if possible, in language and literacy practices. And then we call the ecosystem co-constructors. We call it the team of co-constructors, which are directors, curriculum coordinators, instructional coaches, mentor teachers, any family support specialists, as we have here in this meeting today. So, and teachers who are involved. So it's kind of like a group of people who are coming together to co-construct that ecosystem, which we all already are a part of, but we have co-constructor meetings, and then staff participating in those Cox Campus related courses. And then we have those actions required on the right that kind of go into more detail about it. And on the next slide, let's go to the next slide and look at another one. So teachers having common planning time. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that is in a little bit. But that was mentioned as well. And a shared commitment to developing a data-driven culture. All right. Yes, we can go to the next one. Okay, so a data-driven culture. This is really important. We're going to kind of go through each of these briefly that were mentioned in the video. What comes to mind when you think about a data-driven culture? Can you put in the chat or unmute what comes to mind for you when you think of a data-driven culture? Jennifer, what about you? What comes to mind with you when you think about data-driven culture?
I think about the ways that we collect data. So if there's progress monitoring tools that are already in place at my site, then I would think about how often I use that information, and how my team can come together and really review that information and use it to inform the work that we want to do together.
I love it. Yeah, someone put reflection, I see in the chat.
Yep, absolutely. So you want to take some time to reflect on that data that you're collecting and find out where those, spots are, where they need some improvement, some spots where children are thriving and doing really well. So data tells you a lot about, what's going on in those classrooms.
And a lot of times we have systems in place to collect data, which could be like anecdotal notes. Sometimes it's just in our head. We have work samples. And then, of course, we have things like TSG. It's something we use in a lot of our sites that we work at. But some kind of system to keep up with data, matrices, but using that to reflect and then make future changes is what creates that culture when we're really incorporating that cycle of progress monitoring. All right, we can go on to the next one. Professional learning opportunities. Well, we can't stress this enough. Taking the courses, reviewing the courses, making sure that teachers understand the practices that are mentioned in the courses. Not just passively taking the courses, but we actually have a lot of guides for many of our courses. If you just type in the name of the course and the word guide on Cox Campus, you can pull up some of those course guides, which have reflection questions. And I use those when I'm coaching. I just go in there. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Our team of experts at Cox Campus have come up with this system. Rollins Center, we've worked on this. So we have the questions there, and I just grab from the questions. And I might expand on them depending on, who I'm talking to. But having those reflection questions about the course itself and the practices and making sure that they understand it is so important. So any professional learning opportunities that you can offer to continue this process. All right, we'll look at the next one. Common planning time. I'm actually going to show you in just a minute what is available on Cox Campus, but I'll come back to that. But that is a time for teachers to come together in similar age groups, maybe monthly, twice a month, whatever you can put in place, and plan together. It's common planning. So it's not just a regular lesson planning time, but it's where ideas can be shared, where peers can work together. All right, we'll look at the next
Can
one.
I ask a clarifying question about common planning?
Oh, yes.
How long do you recommend for common planning time for teachers?
I like to do at least an hour if possible.
Yeah.
Jennifer, is that what you would say too?
I'd say about an hour.
Okay.
And the key word is common. So you guys want to come together around a common idea, a common concept, something that is happening in more than 50% of the classrooms at that site. What is something that we all want to grow on together? So that kind of makes the meetings more productive and more helpful for each other. So but an hour is at minimum.
Perfect. Thank you.
And it depends on the size of your site and your school. I mean, big schools, I suggest getting infant and toddler teachers together, infant and young toddler teachers together, and then maybe the older toddler teachers together, preschool and pre-K together. But I have seen at smaller sites where everybody was coming together. It was a planning day anyway. We set aside an hour, and then we just get into groups. So you get into groups based on your age group, because it's going to be a little bit adapted differently. Your plans, obviously, based on the age group. So grouping in age groups one way or another is part of that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I will come back to common planning because I want to show you a resource, and the link is in the chat there. So the last one on here is support and mentoring for teachers. So this one can be tricky depending on what staff you have available, but any mentor teachers, lead teachers, we suggest having someone there to support and coach. And we do have a coaching suite on Cox Campus, and I'm going to show you that as well. So I'm going to show you what that is and give you some ideas around coaching. And so let me share my screen, and I'll start with common planning. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to show you fresh from my homepage here, my dashboard. I've already logged in. And I'm just going up here to the top under the search engine. And I'm going to type in common planning and see what resources come up. Ah, there we go. A guide for common planning. That's exactly what I'm looking for. All right, I'm going to download that and open it here. Okay, so what is it? A scheduled time for multiple teachers from different classrooms in the same age group to work together. Typically 1 to 2 hours. So to answer your question, what is the purpose? It's to bring teachers together to learn from one another, collaborate on projects that will lead to improvements and lesson quality. We're always focused on child outcomes. So that's the whole purpose of it. Generally speaking, these improvements result from 1, the improved coordination and communication that occurs among teachers who meet and talk regularly, and 2, the learning insights and constructive feedback that occur during professional discussions among teachers, and 3, the lessons, units, materials, and resources that are created or improved when teachers work on them collaboratively. If you go and search bubble maps, you'll find all sorts of resources on bubble maps. That's a way that we sort of create a web, put a book in the middle of it, and then we have activities on the outside, different areas to focus on and plan activities. That is a great thing to do during common planning. I've seen common planning where teachers are marking up books together, so they're sharing ideas, a lot of different planning. Jennifer, what are some things that you've seen in common planning?
Lots of things. So I've seen, as you mentioned earlier, it just depends on the site, of course. And so depending on availability for teachers, for the most part, they do tend to get together based on age groups. But like I said, the topic does stay the same for all teachers. So if they're specifically working on lesson plans, they are working on small group activities. So everybody is working on small groups, but they're catering it to small groups in their classroom for their age group. So although the topic is the same, so we're all working on small groups, they're just branching off and getting together with their specific age group and working on ways, brainstorming ideas, activities, talking about ways that they can enhance their small groups. So it varies. I've seen it like about acre books. So if they're working on a particular theme for the month, they get together and they talk about ways that they can enhance their environments, add materials, incorporate families. So it's a host of different things, but it will vary depending on the site's demographic of teachers, students, and what the common goal is.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I've seen some of those things as well. Even bringing in data, talk about data-driven culture, bringing in the data and helping the teachers like facilitate a data conversation. Like, how are we going to plan activities, not just based on the theme and the book that we're focused on, but also based on needs in our particular classroom. So if we have data and we have that information, we can print it out, teachers can pull it up. We're looking at it. We're looking at those percentages that are falling below in certain areas.
Yep.
Things that children in the classroom need to work on. And I always tell teachers, you have the data in your head as well. You know your children and what they've been struggling with and the things that you're trying to get them to do, because we have site-wide goals, we have joint action plans. So bring that to the table and let's talk about where we want our children to focus on. So I like to bring as much of that data-driven culture to common planning as possible, because then teachers start getting on that in the flow of that culture as well.
And that's what we do here in Mississippi.
Oh, somebody was sharing.
Yes, this is Sharon from Mississippi. That's something that we do here. I'm the data coordinator for the Office of Early Childhood. And something I started when I started here last year was surveys, when our curriculum coordinator would go out and meet with the teachers about the different, books that they're in the classroom using. And we started collecting data from those sessions, and the teachers would come together, the presentation from the curriculum person here at MDE, and I would go back and go through that data. She actually just walked out of my office getting a set of surveys from a common planning area that she did a couple of weeks ago. So it does help as it relates to data, bringing the teachers together and having a common theme that they are focused on, and it allows them to grow. We're separated by, divisions in the state, like the North and the South and the Central. And so each, quarter or each month or as needed, our curriculum person goes out and introduce information, introduce the books and how they can incorporate that in their classroom time and their center time, and being able to collect that data to be able to go back and tell them, this is what they're wanting, this is what they're needing, this is where they're struggling, and this is where they need additional support. So data is very important as it relates to common planning time for the teachers.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to move on to show you a couple more things that were mentioned. So what we call the coaching suite or the coaching courses area, if you go up here where it says educators and you just kind of move your cursor over it, it drops down and says courses, and then under courses, instructional coaching. And we highly recommend this for anyone who's a mentor teacher, even directors, leaders. There are actually 4 courses on here. Instructional coaching for changing children's futures is the introduction to it. It's 2.5 hours, so it's a little more than an introduction, but it goes into what the coaching, what it is and how effective it is. And then we have one called Relationships Are the Heart of Coaching, which is my favorite. And the third one is the Rollins coaching process. So that actually gets deep into what that process is. And we have so many resources connected to these courses. And then the last one is actually designed for the role of leaders in coaching. So I really highly recommend this being your next step after you take the ecosystem course, to get into these courses and think about ways that you can provide coaching, mentoring, support your teachers in this way. And you may not have a coach in your staff, but if you have someone who's willing to take that lead and to work with teachers or a group of people, co-constructors that can work together. And the link to that is also in the chat. And one more thing I want to share is if you go under educators and go to education leaders, hold on, I got to move something. It's not working for me. Okay. If you go down to Cox Campus Groups, and then you go under Groups Getting Started, you can actually create an online group. You can create a form to suggest one, to ask for one. So just look at some of these resources in here. Decide on how you want to create your group. There are ways that once you have a group in place, you can create joint action plans for your individual teachers and staff on Cox campus. You can look at insights to what courses they've taken. So it's really a great way to organize this co-construction of an ecosystem. So you can put in to have a group created, and you'll hear back. All right. Any questions about these 4 things before we move on? All right, feel free to put in the chat as well.
Yeah. All right, so we are gonna recap at this time on some things that we were able to cover today. So we had a chance to reflect on our ratings and think about our experiences using the tool and going into our classrooms and seeing how things are going. We prioritized and we chose one new element from the connections cluster. And then we set a final goal and some action steps on the joint action plan. We also gave you some, pointers, some tips through modeling, me and Nathan doing our model for you. And then the last thing we spent our time on was how to create that infrastructure so that your sites can be successful. And so a lot in the day, but we hope that all this information was helpful. And as always, please take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions, leave comments, and definitely go to coxcampus.org for additional supports. Okay, so our next steps that we encourage is to continue developing that joint action plan and working on those action steps. Assess your infrastructure. So go back to your sites, think about what you have in place, what you need to put in place, what resources would be helpful to add to your goals and your action steps, and then begin implementing those action steps. Take it one at a time. There's no need to rush. It's not a race. Take your time and really set like a goal each month, each week. This is what we're going to work on. This is what we're going to focus on. Take your time and do it with fidelity. And then the last thing we encourage is to determine if your Cox Campus group account is necessary for your organization. Submit a group request to us so that we can help support you in creating that group for your sites.
Jennifer, I'd like to share one more thing that came to mind just now.
Cool.
And I'm going to share my screen to share it.
Okay.
So on Cox Campus, whenever you're looking for anything or creating anything or looking for resources, taking a course, and you have any issues or questions, I just want to point out that at the bottom of the screen here in the corner, there's a little blue with white quote icon. And when I click that, you can see I've asked questions and had them answered. That goes directly to support on Cox Campus. And I believe we have a direct email for that as well. Shantae, would you be able to put that in the chat?
Yes, it's info@Cox Campus. Hold on one moment, I sure will.
Thank you so much. I know we've talked a lot about different resources on here, so I thought just knowing that you have that support there would be helpful. Thank you.